Hey guys, tonight we dive into a story that will make you question every shadow in your room and every object you thought was harmless. The rain lashes against the windows like impatient fingers trying to get in, and the wind howls through cracks you didn't even know existed. You probably won't survive this, not emotionally at least, because what happens next isn't just about fear. It's about unraveling truths so unsettling they'll linger long after the tale ends. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments below. Let's see where this nightmare finds its audience tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge down an unfamiliar street as storm clouds press low overhead, their gray bellies heavy with rain. It's one of those places time seems to have forgotten. A cluster of dilapidated buildings sagging under years of neglect. Your sneakers splash through puddles slick with oil, the neon sign above a shuttered diner flickering weakly like a dying heartbeat. And then you see it, the shop. Its windows are grimy, smeared with dirt and streaks left by old rains, but something draws you closer. Maybe it's boredom or curiosity, or perhaps some unseen force pulling at threads you can't yet name. Either way, you step inside without thinking twice. The air is thick with dust, each breath stirring tiny particles that catch the dim light filtering through cracks in the walls. Shelves groan under the weight of forgotten treasures. Cracked teacups, rusted tools, yellow books whose spines crumble at a touch. But there, sitting alone on a rickety table near the back, is the doll. At first glance, it seems ordinary enough. A porcelain face painted with delicate features, glassy eyes wide open, a faded dress stitched clumsily around its rigid form. Something about it feels off. Historians still argue whether dolls like these were ever truly meant for play, or if they served darker purposes from the start. As you pick it up, the sensation is strange, not unpleasant, exactly, but not comforting either. Its surface is cold despite the humid air, and when your fingers brush over its arms, you swear you feel a faint pulse beneath the glaze. A faint creak behind you makes you freeze. Turning slowly, you scan the empty shop, half expecting someone or something to emerge from the shadows. Nothing moves except the occasional drip of water leaking through the roof. Still, unease prickles along your spine, whispering warnings you choose to ignore. Outside, thunder growls, shaking the ground slightly. Rain begins to fall harder now, drumming against the tin roof in an erratic rhythm. For reasons you don't fully understand, you decide to take the doll home. After all, who would miss it? Who even knows this place exists anymore? As you tuck it under your arm and push open the door, a gust of wind slams it shut behind you with startling force. Startled, you glance back once more, catching sight of something scrawled faintly on the wall beside the entrance. She sees you. By the time you reach your apartment, soaked to the bone and shivering, the doll feels heavier than before. Setting it down on your cluttered coffee table, you notice details you missed earlier. Faint scratches etched into its chest, almost like writing. Leaning closer, you squint, tracing the lines with your fingertip. They spell out a single word: bound. Well, you mutter aloud, forcing a laugh that sounds hollow even to your own ears. That's cheery. But as night falls and the storm continues to rage outside, sleep proves elusive. Every flash of lightning casts grotesque shadows across your walls, twisting the doll's silhouette into something monstrous. You tell yourself it's just your imagination playing tricks. It has to be. Yet somewhere deep down, doubt lingers, gnawing at the edges of your mind. What did you really bring home tonight? And why does part of you already feel like it belongs to you? The hours drag on, each tick of the clock louder than the last. You've tried everything to distract yourself, scrolling through your phone, flipping channels on the TV, even attempted to read a book, but nothing sticks. The doll sits there on the coffee table, unmoving yet somehow commanding all your attention. Its glassy eyes seem to follow you no matter where you go in the room, reflecting the occasional flicker of lightning like tiny fractured mirrors. You tell yourself it's ridiculous, that dolls don't move or watch or do anything. They're just objects, lifeless and inert, right? Still, when another crash of thunder shakes the windows, you glance over reflexively and freeze. For a moment, you could swear the doll's head is tilted at a slightly different angle than before. But when you blink, it looks exactly as it did when you placed it there earlier. Paranormal suggestion, you mutter under your breath, rolling your eyes at your own paranoia. Historians still argue whether human brains are wired to see patterns where none exist, but right now, yours feels particularly eager to jump to conclusions, deciding you need fresh air or maybe just an excuse to leave the room. You grab a jacket and step out onto the fire escape. The storm hasn't let up. Rain pelts your face, mingling with the cold sweat, prickling your skin. Below, streets glisten slick and empty, save for the occasional car speeding past, headlights cutting jagged paths through the darkness. It's calming out here, away from the oppressive quiet of your apartment and the unnerving presence of the doll. Or so you think. When you finally return inside, dripping wet and shivering, something feels wrong. Subtly, almost imperceptibly, the atmosphere has shifted. The air seems heavier, charged with an energy that makes your hair stand on end. And then you see it. The doll isn't where you left it. Your heart skips a beat as you scan the room, panic bubbling up in your chest. No, wait, it's still on the coffee table, but now it's facing the opposite direction, its head turned toward the couch instead of the window. Your pulse quickens as you approach cautiously, half expectant to lunge at you or do something equally absurd. But it doesn't move. Of course it doesn't. Dolls don't move. This is insane. You whisper more to yourself than anyone else. Still, you can't shake the feeling that you're being watched. Not by the doll necessarily, but by something using it as a conduit, a vessel. Whatever logic you try to apply crumbles under the weight of what you know you saw. Unable to resist, you reach out and adjust the doll back to its original position, making sure it's facing the window again. This time, you place a small stack of books beside it as markers, just to prove to yourself that you're not losing your mind. Satisfied, you retreat to bed, pulling the covers tightly around you despite the warmth of the room. Sleep comes fitfully, plagued by dreams of porcelain faces and hollow eyes staring into your soul. Somewhere in a haze between waking and dreaming, you hear it, a soft creak, followed by the faintest rustle of fabric. At first, you assume it's the building settling or the wind rattling loose boards outside. But then it happens again, closer this time, and you bolt upright, heart pounding. Lightning flashes, illuminating the room in stark relief. And there it is. The doll has moved again. This time, it's sitting upright on the edge of the coffee table, its legs dangling off the side like a child perched on a diving board. One arm hangs limply at its side while the other is raised halfway, fingers curled as if gesturing for you to come closer. The stack of books lies scattered on the floor, knocked aside like they were nothing more than pebbles. For several long seconds, you simply stare, paralyzed by disbelief and mounting dread. Then, summoning every ounce of courage you possess, you force yourself to get out of bed and cross the room. Each step feels heavier than the last, your bare feet sticking slightly to the wooden floor as though the house itself is trying to hold you back. Reaching the coffee table, you examine the doll closely, searching for any sign of tampering. Strings, wires, anything that might explain how it moved without you noticing. But there's nothing, just smooth porcelain and stiff fabric, utterly devoid of mechanisms capable of independent motion. A low rumble of thunder rolls through the apartment, vibrating the walls and rattling the windows. In the sudden silence that follows, you hear it, a whisper, barely audible, emanating from somewhere near the doll. "Help me." You recoil instinctively, stumbling backward until your back hits the wall. The voice, if that's what it was, is impossibly faint, almost indistinguishable from the ambient sound of the storm. Yet you heard it clearly enough to recognize its tone, desperate, pleading, and undeniably feminine. What the hell? You breathe, clutching at your chest as though you can physically steady your racing heart. Another flash of lightning reveals no one else in the room. Just you, the doll, and the growing certainty that whatever you brought home tonight is far more alive than you ever wanted to believe. The storm rages on outside, but inside your apartment, the air is thick with an unnatural stillness. You stand frozen against the wall, staring at the doll as if it might suddenly spring to life and confirm your worst fears. It doesn't. Not visibly, anyway. But that single whispered plea lingers in your mind like a splinter you can't quite dig out. Help me? Who said it? Was it even real? Or was it just another trick of the storm? Some auditory illusion born from stress and exhaustion? You shake your head sharply, trying to clear the fog of paranoia clouding your thoughts. Okay, you mutter aloud, pacing back and forth across the room. Let's think this through logically. Logical thinking feels laughable right now, but clinging to reason is better than succumbing to panic. Dolls don't whisper. Dolls don't move. And yet, another clap of thunder shakes the building, followed by a sharp crack of lightning that sends jagged shadows dancing across the walls. For a brief moment, the doll's silhouette stretches grotesquely toward you, its raised arm elongating into a claw-like shape that seems almost predatory. You blink, and the illusion fades, leaving only the eerie quiet of the aftermath. Right. You say sarcastically, addressing no one in particular. Totally normal. Completely explainable. Still, curiosity, or maybe stupidity, gets the better of you. Slowly, hesitantly, you approach the coffee table again, crouching down to examine the doll more closely. Its glassy eyes glint faintly in the dim light, reflecting nothing but the chaos of the storm beyond the window. Up close, you notice something new. Tiny cracks spiderwebbing across its porcelain face. So fine they're almost invisible unless you're looking for them. They weren't there before, were they? Historians still argue whether objects can absorb emotions over time, becoming vessels for residual energy left behind by their owners. If true, then what horrors must this doll have witnessed to look so fractured, so broken? Your fingers twitch instinctively, wanting to touch it again, but you resist. Instead, you focus on the voice, or rather, the memory of it. Help me? The words echo softly in your mind, layered with desperation and sorrow. Was it asking for rescue, or warning you about something worse? As if responding to your unspoken question, the doll shifts ever so slightly. This time, you see it happen, a barely perceptible tilt of its head, accompanied by the faintest scrape of porcelain against wood. Your breath catches in your throat, and you scramble backward, nearly tripping over your own feet in your haste to put distance between you and the table. Stop it. You hiss, your voice trembling despite your best efforts to sound firm. Just stop. But the doll doesn't stop. Its movements are subtle, deliberate, as though it's testing your reaction. The arm that had been raised halfway drops slowly to its side, while its head tilts further, angling itself to face you directly. Those wide, unblinking eyes seem to bore into yours, searching for something you're not ready to give. And then it happens. The realization hits you like a punch to the gut. The doll isn't moving randomly. It's mimicking you. Every shift, every gesture. It mirrors your suppressed emotions, amplifying them until they're impossible to ignore. When you recoiled in fear, it leaned forward. When you shouted in anger, it tilted its head as if listening intently. This isn't happening, you whisper, shaking your head furiously. But deep down, you know it is. The weight of the situation presses down on you, suffocating in its intensity. Why does it feel so personal? Why does it feel like the doll knows things about you? Things you've tried so hard to bury. A sudden gust of wind rattles the windows, drawing your attention briefly away from the doll. When you glance back, it's sitting perfectly still once more as though nothing happened. Almost too still, in fact. Even its cracked expression seems eerily serene now, like it's waiting patiently for you to make the next move. Forcing yourself to breathe deeply, you grab a blanket from the couch and wrap it tightly around your shoulders, trying to ward off the chill creeping up your spine. Maybe it's the storm messing with your head. Maybe it's lack of sleep. Either way, you need answers. And there's only one place you can think to start looking. The shop where you found it. The idea of returning to that decrepit shop fills you with equal parts dread and determination. Something about the doll's presence feels incomplete, as though it's a piece of a larger puzzle waiting to be solved. And if the answers lie anywhere, they're back in that forgotten corner of the city where it all began. But first, daylight. You can't bring yourself to step foot outside while the storm still rages, not with the memory of how the doll reacted to the thunder fresh in your mind. So instead, You spend the remaining hours of darkness pacing your apartment, glancing at the doll every few minutes like a nervous parent checking on a sleeping child. It remains motionless, almost mockingly so, its serene expression taunting you with its silence. When morning finally breaks, the world outside is eerily calm, as though the storm had never happened. The streets glisten under weak sunlight, puddles reflecting pale blue skies streaked with wispy clouds. Grabbing your jacket, you head out, leaving the doll behind, but not without a pang of guilt, as though abandoning it might somehow make things worse. The walk to the shop feels longer than you remember, each step heavier than the last. By the time you arrive, sweat beads along your hairline despite the cool breeze. Up close, the building looks even worse in daylight, peeling paint flakes off the walls like dead skin, and the windows are so filthy they're practically opaque. A faded sign above the door reads "Curios and Keepsakes" in curling script, though most of the letters have worn away over time. Pushing open the creaky door, you step inside. The air smells musty, laced with a faint tang of mildew. Sunlight filters through cracks in the ceiling, casting long golden beams across the cluttered interior. Everything appears exactly as you left it. The shelves sagging under dusty trinkets, the floorboards warped and uneven. But something feels different now. Your eyes dart around the room, searching for anything unusual. That's when you spot it. A small wooden plaque nailed haphazardly to the wall beside the counter. At first glance, it seems unremarkable, a simple carving etched into the surface, but upon closer inspection, you realize it's a symbol, a circle bisected by 3 jagged lines radiating outward, resembling both a sunburst and a spider's web. What is this? You murmur, tracing the grooves with your fingertip, though it feels rough beneath your touch, weathered and splintered from years of neglect. Historians still argue whether symbols like these hold inherent power or merely serve as psychological triggers, embedding themselves in our subconscious and influencing behavior. Either way, this one gives you chills. As you examine the plaque, a loose floorboard creaks loudly beneath your weight. Startled, you glance down and notice something odd. One of the boards near the base of the wall has been pried up slightly, revealing a narrow gap underneath. Kneeling, you pry it open further using the edge of your phone case, revealing a hidden compartment stuffed with yellowed papers and brittle photographs. Heart pounding, you pull them out carefully, spreading them across the counter to get a better look. Most of the images are faded and torn, depicting scenes you don't recognize. A woman in old-fashioned clothing standing beside a workbench cluttered with dolls. A group of children posing stiffly for a portrait, their faces eerily blank. And finally, a close-up shot of a man with sharp features and piercing eyes, his hands stained dark as though coated in ink or blood. Flipping through the stack, you find a handwritten note tucked between 2 photos. The paper is brittle, crumbling at the edges, but the words scrawled across it are legible enough. The dolls bind what cannot be spoken. Their whispers carry truths too painful to face. Beware the maker, for he sees beyond the veil. A shiver runs down your spine as you read the cryptic message aloud. The maker, who is he? And what does any of this have to do with the doll sitting on your coffee table? Before you can dwell on it further, another discovery catches your eye. Tucked into the corner of the hidden compartment is a small leather-bound journal, its cover embossed with the same strange symbol carved into the wooden plaque. Opening it cautiously, you skim the pages filled with cramped handwriting and crude sketches of dolls, some eerily similar to the one you brought home. One passage stands out, circled repeatedly in red ink. Each creation carries a fragment of its creator's will. To control the object is to control the soul. The implications hit you like a freight train. If the doll truly carries part of its maker's essence, then whoever crafted it isn't just watching, it's manipulating, pulling strings you didn't even know were attached. Suddenly, the shop feels suffocating, the weight of unseen eyes pressing down on you. Shoving the journal and photographs into your bag, you bolt for the exit, desperate to escape the oppressive atmosphere. As you step outside, the bright sunlight feels like salvation, but deep down, you know the answers you uncovered only scratched the surface. And the doll? It's waiting for you. You walk briskly back toward your apartment, the journal and photographs tucked safely in your bag, but weighing heavily on your mind. The morning sun casts long shadows across the pavement, stretching them like fingers reaching out to grab you. Every step feels deliberate now, as though the act of moving forward is a battle against some unseen force urging you to turn back. By the time you reach your building, sweat drips down your temples despite the cool breeze. Your hands tremble slightly as you fumble with your keys, heart racing not from exertion but anticipation, or dread. Pushing open the door, you brace yourself for what awaits inside. The doll hasn't moved since you left it, still sitting motionless on the coffee table. For a fleeting moment, relief washes over you. Perhaps it's just an ordinary object after all, a harmless relic of someone else's past. But then you notice something new, a faint smudge on its porcelain cheek, dark and wet looking, almost like a tear. What the hell? You mutter, dropping your bag onto the couch and leaning closer to inspect it. The mark isn't paint or dirt. It's too viscous, glistening faintly under the light streaming through the window. Tentatively, you touch it with the tip of your finger, pulling back immediately when the sensation registers. It's warm and sticky, like fresh blood, but thinner, more watery. Your stomach churns uneasily as you wipe your hand on your jeans, trying to shake off both the substance and the creeping sense of violation. Whatever this thing is, it's alive in ways you can't comprehend, and it's growing bolder, sinking onto the couch. You pull out the journal and begin flipping through its pages again, searching for anything that might explain what's happening. Most entries are cryptic ramblings about binding threads and reflected will, but one passage catches your attention. Storms awaken their voices. Thunder stirs their souls. Those who hear must tread carefully, for the echoes speak truths buried deep within. You glance at the doll, its glassy eyes staring blankly ahead. Storms. That's when it started moving, when it whispered for help. Was it reacting to the storm itself, or using it as a conduit? Historians still argue whether natural phenomena like storms can amplify paranormal activity. But if there's any truth to that theory, tonight's forecast doesn't look promising. Dark clouds have already begun gathering on the horizon, rolling in ominously fast. Setting the journal aside, you spread the photographs across the coffee table, studying each one intently. The woman beside the workbench looks familiar somehow, her features ghostly yet striking. Could she be the maker mentioned in the note? And the man with the piercing eyes, was he her accomplice, or perhaps her victim? One photo in particular stands out, a group shot of several adults standing around a table covered in dolls, their expressions grim and unsmiling. In the background, barely visible, is a child clutching a ragged doll tightly to her chest. Her face is turned away, but something about her posture feels achingly familiar. A distant rumble of thunder snaps you out of your thoughts. Lightning flashes briefly outside, illuminating the room in stark white light. When the glow fades, you freeze. The doll has changed positions again. This time, it's lying flat on its back, arms stretched out rigidly to either side, legs splayed awkwardly as though it's been dropped carelessly or pinned down. Its cracked face reflects none of the chaos surrounding it. Instead, it seems eerily calm, almost resigned. Panic bubbles up in your chest, but you force yourself to stay seated, gripping the edge of the couch until your knuckles turn white. Another flash of lightning reveals something even more unsettling. Tiny droplets of moisture pooling around the doll's base, forming a dark ring on the wooden surface beneath it. It's crying again. No, you whisper hoarsely, shaking your head. No, no, no. But denial won't make it stop. Slowly, reluctantly, you rise to your feet and approach the table, every instinct screaming at you to run while you still can. Kneeling down, you examine the doll closely, searching for any sign of tampering. A hidden mechanism, a crack leaking fluid, but find nothing. Just smooth porcelain and stiff fabric, utterly devoid of explanation. And then you see it, etched faintly into the doll's chest, partially obscured by the folds of its faded dress, is another symbol, identical to one carved into a wooden plaque at the shop. Okay, you breathe, backing away slowly. Okay, think. What does it want? Thunder crashes louder this time, rattling the windows and sending a jolt of adrenaline coursing through your veins. Outside, the sky has darkened significantly. Rain began to patter against the glass in uneven bursts. The storm has arrived, and with it, The certainty that whatever happens next won't wait for you to figure out. The storm intensifies, rain lashing against the windows like icy needles while thunder growls low and menacing in the distance. You retreat to the couch, clutching a throw pillow as though it might somehow shield you from whatever comes next. The doll lies motionless on the table, its eerie calmness more unsettling than any movement could be. Its cracked face seems almost serene now, as if it's biding its time, waiting for something. But waiting for what? You stare at the photographs scattered across the coffee table, your mind racing to piece together their significance. The woman by the workbench, the man with piercing eyes, the child clutching her ragged doll. They're connected somehow, threads weaving a story you can't quite unravel. One detail stands out. The child's doll looks strikingly similar to the one sitting before you now. Not identical, but close enough to make your skin crawl. A sudden gust of wind rattles the window panes, startling you into action. Grabbing the journal again, you flip frantically through its pages, searching for anything that might explain why this particular doll feels so personal. Why it seems to reflect pieces of you. Halfway through, you find another passage circled in red ink. To bind is to control, but control requires sacrifice. The maker demands obedience, not the object, but the soul who claims it. Your breath catches in your throat. Claims it. Did bringing the doll home count as claiming it? And if so, what does that mean for you? Thunder booms overhead, shaking the entire apartment. Lightning flashes, illuminating the room in stark relief, and revealing the doll once more. This time, it's sitting upright again, positioned perfectly in the center of the table. Its head tilts slightly toward you, glassy eyes glinting faintly in the dim light. What do you want? You demand, your voice trembling despite your attempt to sound firm. It doesn't respond, at least not verbally. Instead, its movements continue, slow and deliberate, mimicking your own body language with uncanny precision. When you cross your arms defensively, the doll raises its tiny porcelain hands to mimic the gesture. When you lean forward, it tilts its head in kind. This isn't real. You mutter under your breath, squeezing your eyes shut and pinching the bridge of your nose. This is not happening. But it is. And then it hits you, the realization crashing over you like a tidal wave. The doll isn't just imitating you. It's amplifying your suppressed emotions, forcing you to confront feelings you've buried deep inside. Fear, anger, desperation. Each emotion rises to the surface, raw and unfiltered, until you feel like you're drowning in them. Historians still argue whether objects imbued with emotional energy can act as mirrors, reflecting fragments of their owner's psyches. If true, then this doll isn't just a passive vessel. It's a dark reflection of yourself, bound by someone else's desires. The thought makes your stomach churn. Someone else's desires. Whose? The maker's? Lightning strikes nearby, momentarily plunging the room into darkness as the power flickers. In the brief absence of light, you hear it, a soft whisper, barely audible over the storm. You don't belong to yourself anymore. Your eyes snap open, heart pounding wildly in your chest. The voice isn't coming from the doll directly. It's more like an echo, reverberating in the space between your ears. But the words are unmistakable, laden with accusation and finality. Who said that? You shout, spinning around to scan the room. No one answers. Just a relentless drumming of rain against the windows and a faint hum of electricity struggling to stabilize. Turning back to the doll, you notice something new. Its mouth is slightly open, painted lips parted just enough to suggest speech. Before they'd been sealed shut, frozen in a perpetual expression of innocence. Now it looks almost alive. Another flash of lightning reveals a symbol etched into its chest glowing faintly, pulsing in time with the storm outside. It's no longer static. It's active, responding to something beyond your understanding. Desperation takes hold. You grab the journal and flip through it furiously, scanning for answers. Buried near the back, you find a single sentence underlined multiple times. Freedom lies in breaking the bond, but the bond cannot be broken without sacrifice. Sacrifice. The word sends a chill down your spine. What kind of sacrifice? And how far would you have to go to sever the connection binding you to this cursed thing? Before you can dwell on it further, another realization dawns, one far more unsettling than the doll itself. Every decision you made lately, every impulse that led you here, feels less like your own choice and more like someone else pulling strings behind the scenes. Finding the shop, taking the doll, returning to uncover its secrets. Were these truly your actions, or were you being manipulated all along? The storm rages on outside, mirroring the turmoil brewing within you. Whatever force controls the doll has already sunk its hooks deep into your life, shaping your choices in ways you never noticed until now. And suddenly you understand, this isn't just about the doll. It's about you, and the chains you didn't even realize were there. The weight of the realization settles over you like a suffocating blanket, pressing down on your chest until it's hard to breathe. Manipulated, controlled. The words echo in your mind, each repetition carving deeper into your sense of self-worth. How much of your life has been your own? How many decisions, big or small, were nudged, guided, orchestrated by forces you couldn't see? You glance at the doll again, its glowing symbol pulsing faintly in rhythm with the storm outside. Its presence feels heavier now, not just physically but emotionally, as though it's feeding off your growing despair. Or maybe it's simply reflecting it back at you, amplifying every doubt and insecurity until they consume you whole. Talk to me, you whisper hoarsely, leaning forward on the couch. Tell me what you want. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, ever so slowly, the doll tilts its head toward you, its glassy eyes locking onto yours with an intensity that makes your skin crawl. Another whisper fills the air, not loud enough to be heard clearly, but distinct enough to send shivers racing up your spine. You already know. Your jaw tightens, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. That's not an answer, but deep down you suspect it is. The doll isn't here to provide clarity. It's here to force you to confront truths you've spent years running from. Truths about who you are and who made you this way. Thunder crashes violently outside, rattling the windows and momentarily plunging the room into darkness. When the lights flicker back on, the doll has shifted again, now sitting cross-legged on the table, as if settling in for a conversation. Its tiny hands rest on its knees, palms facing upward in a gesture that feels almost inviting. What do you mean? I already know. You ask, your voice waver between anger and desperation. In response, the whispers grow louder, overlapping one another in a cacophony of voices that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. Some are soft and pleading, others sharp and accusatory, but through the chaos, fragments of sentences begin to emerge. You let them shape you. They told you who to be. You followed their rules without question. Each word strikes like a dagger, piercing through layers of denial you build up over years. Memories flood back unbidden, moments when someone else's desires took precedence over your own. Foster parents dictating your future. Teachers steering you toward paths you didn't choose. Friends pressuring you to fit molds you never asked for. Historians still argue whether humans are inherently free or bound by societal expectations imposed upon them from birth. Sitting here now, staring at the doll's unblinking gaze, you can't help but wonder if freedom was ever truly yours to claim, or if you've always been trapped in a web of other people's making. The storm reaches its peak, rain pounding against the windows with relentless fury. Lightning flashes repeatedly, casting jagged shadows across the walls and illuminating the doll in stark relief. Its porcelain face remains impassive, yet there's something undeniably alive about it now, a vitality that defies logic and reason. And then it speaks, not in whispers this time, but in a clear, resonant voice that sends shockwaves rippling through your core. They broke you first. Your breath hitches, tears pricking at the corners of your eyes. You want to deny it, to scream and shout and tear the doll apart limb by limb. But you can't, because somewhere deep inside, you know it's true. They broke you. It continues, its tone eerily calm, almost sympathetic. And I am what remains. No. You choke out, shaking your head furiously. No, that's not. It's why you're drawn to me. It interrupts, its voice softening slightly. Why you brought me home. I remind you of yourself, the parts you try so hard to hide, the cracks, the fractures. The pieces you wish would just disappear. Your hands clench into fists, nails digging painfully into your palms. It's wrong. It has to be wrong. Dolls don't talk. Dolls don't understand psychology or trauma or any of the messy complexities that make up human existence. Except this one does. Another flash of lightning reveals a symbol on its chest glowing brighter than before, radiating heat that warms the air around it. The journal slips from your lap, falling open to a page you hadn't noticed earlier. Written in bold letters across the top is a single phrase. The Dollmaker binds, but the soul remembers. Your stomach twists painfully as understanding dawns. The doll isn't just a reflection of you. It's a fragment of your past, a shard of memory given form and purpose by the Maker's will. And if breaking free means confronting those memories, then you'll have to face things you spent a lifetime trying to forget. The storm begins to subside outside, leaving behind an eerie silence punctuated only by the steady drip of water leaking through the roof. Inside, the tension is palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Well, the doll asks softly, tilting its head expectantly. Are you ready? Ready for what? To relive the pain? To dismantle the chains binding you to a life you didn't choose? To destroy the things staring back at you with your own fractured reflection? You don't answer. Not because you can't, but because you're afraid of what the truth might cost. The silence stretches on, heavy and suffocating, as though the room itself is holding its breath. You stare at the doll, its glowing symbol dimming slightly now that the storm has passed, but its presence remains overwhelming. It sits there patiently, waiting for your response, its glassy eyes reflecting none of the turmoil brewing inside you. Well, it repeats, softer this time, almost gentle. Are you ready to face what you've been running from? Your throat feels dry, your voice trapped somewhere between defiance and surrender. I don't even know where to start. You admit finally, the words tasting bitter on your tongue. Start with the truth. The doll replies, its tone carrying an odd mix of compassion and inevitability. Start with who broke you. The question hits like a punch to the gut, forcing memories you'd buried long ago to claw their way back into consciousness. Foster homes, endless rules, people deciding your worth based on how well you fit into boxes they created for you. Each recollection stings worse than the last, reopening wounds you thought had healed, or at least scarred over. Historians still argue whether childhood trauma shapes identity more profoundly than any other factor in human development. Sitting here now, staring at the doll's unblinking gaze, you can't deny the correlation. Every decision you've ever made, every fear, every insecurity, stems from those early years when others held all the power and you had none. You think I wanted this? You snap suddenly, anger bubbling up unexpectedly. You think I asked for any of it? They didn't just break me, they shaped me, molded me into whatever version of myself was easiest for them to control. The doll doesn't flinch, doesn't react beyond tilting its head slightly, as if encouraging you to continue. And now, you add bitterly, gesturing toward it, you're here, reminding me of everything I've tried so hard to forget. Thanks for that. Its painted lips curve upward faintly. Not quite a smile, but something close enough to make your skin crawl. I'm not here to punish you. It says quietly, I'm here to show you the chains. Only then can you decide whether to break them. Chains. The word resonates deeply, conjuring images of invisible bonds tying you to people, places, and choices that no longer serve you. But breaking free isn't as simple as snapping a lock or tearing through rope. These chains are woven into the fabric of who you are, tangled so tightly around your sense of self that untangling one thread might unravel everything else along with it. Another memory surfaces, one you haven't thought about in years. A foster mother standing in the doorway of your bedroom, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. You'll thank me later, she'd said after grounding you for something trivial, some minor act of rebellion that dared challenge your authority. But you never did thank her. Instead, you learned to suppress the parts of yourself she deemed unacceptable. The parts that questioned, resisted, fought back. Over time, those pieces faded into background, buried under layers of compliance and fear. Until now. Why now? You ask aloud, addressing both the doll and the universe at large. Why drag all this up again after so many years? Because the storm woke me. The doll responds simply, its voice tinged with something resembling regret. And because you brought me home. You sought me out without realizing why. Deep down, you knew you weren't whole, not truly, and you wanted answers. Answers. That's what this is about, isn't it? Not closure or redemption, but understanding. Understanding why you feel the way you do. Why certain emotions linger longer than they should. Why certain fears refuse to fade no matter how much distance you put between yourself and your past. Thunder rumbles faintly in the distance, a reminder that the storm may have passed, but its effects linger. Outside, the streets glisten wetly under fading sunlight, puddles reflecting streaks of orange and pink as dusk settles in. Inside, the air feels thick with anticipation, charged with the weight of truths waiting to be spoken. What happens if I break the chains? You ask hesitantly, afraid of the answer but needing to hear it anyway. The doll tilts its head again, considering. Freedom. It says finally, but freedom comes at a price. Are you willing to pay it? Before you can respond, another realization dawns, one that makes your chest tighten painfully. Breaking free won't just mean confronting your past. It will also mean letting go of the person you became because of it. The compliant child, the obedient teenager, the adult who still seeks approval from ghosts long gone. Is that person even real anymore? Or has she always been a shadow, shaped by forces beyond her control? The doll watches silently, its glowing symbol pulsing faintly in rhythm with your racing heartbeat. Waiting. The room feels smaller now, the walls closing in as though the weight of your thoughts has taken on physical form. You sit there motionless, staring at the doll, its faintly glowing symbol a constant reminder of the choice before you. Freedom, but at what cost? Letting go sounds simple enough in theory, but the reality is far more complicated. Who would you be without the chains binding you to your past? Would you even recognize yourself? Let me guess, you mutter bitterly, breaking the silence. The price involves something dramatic, like my soul or my sanity. The doll tilts its head slightly, an almost amused expression flickering across its porcelain face. Not quite so literal, it replies, its voice soft yet firm, but no less significant. You groan, rubbing your temples as frustration bubbles up inside you. Great. Cryptic. Just what I needed. It's not about grand gestures, the doll continues, ignoring your sarcasm. It's about sacrifice. What are you willing to give up to reclaim yourself? Sacrifice. The word hangs in the air between you, heavy with implication. Sacrificing comfort. Perhaps the illusion of safety that comes from staying within familiar boundaries. Or maybe something deeper. Relationships, habits, identities built on foundations meant to please others rather than fulfill you. Historians still argue whether true freedom requires shedding all external influences or simply learning to navigate them on your own terms. Sitting here now, you suspect it's somewhere between a delicate balance of letting go and holding on, of destroying old patterns while building new ones. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, you admit quietly, the admission tasting bitter but necessary. You're stronger than you think, the doll responds, its tone almost kind. But strength doesn't mean doing alone. It means facing what scares you most and deciding who gets to define you moving forward. The words strike a chord deep within, resonating with truth you've always known but never fully acknowledged. For years, you allowed others to dictate your worth, shaping your identity around their expectations rather than your desires. Now, faced with the possibility of reclaiming control, the prospect feels both exhilarating and terrifying. Thunder rumbles faintly again, distant but persistent, as though the storm refuses to let you forget its presence entirely. Outside, twilight gives way to night, shadows stretching long across the room and mingling with the dim glow of streetlights filtering through the windows. Inside, the tension remains palpable, thick enough to cut with knife. What do I have to do? You ask finally, your voice trembling despite your attempt to sound resolute. The doll doesn't answer immediately. Instead, it shifts slightly on the table, leaning forward ever so subtly, its tiny hands resting on either side of its legs. Its glassy eyes lock onto yours, unblinking and unwavering. First, it says softly, you must confront the source. The source? You echo, confusion knitting your brow. The maker, the doll clarifies. The one who bound us both. Until you understand his will and how it shaped mine, you'll never break free of it. Your stomach twists painfully at the thought. Confronting the maker sounds dangerous, reckless even. What if he's still out there, watching, waiting? What if he's part of the reason you feel so controlled? And then you press, needing to hear the rest before committing fully. Then the doll continues, its voice dropping to a whisper, "You must destroy me." The words hit like a sledgehammer, knocking the breath from your lungs. Destroy it? After everything. The whispers, the revelations, the eerie connection you've begun to feel. It wants you to tear apart? No. You blurt out instinctively, shaking your head furiously. "I can't." "You must." The doll interrupts firmly, its tone leaving no room for argument. "As long as I exist, you remain tethered to the past. To him. To everything he made me represent. But you're not just some object." You protest, anger rising sharply. You're me? A part of me?" "Yes." The doll agrees softly, its painted lips curving upward in a faint, bittersweet smile. "And that's why you have to let me go." Tears prick at the corners of your eyes, blurring your vision as emotions surge uncontrollably. Anger, grief, fear, all tangled together in a knot too tight to unravel. "How?" You whisper hoarsely, clutching at your chest as though you can physically hold yourself together. "How do I destroy something that feels so alive?" The doll leans back slightly, its glowing symbol pulsing brighter now, casting faint shadows across the table. "Fire," it says simply. "Fire purifies. Fire consumes. Fire ends." Your heart pounds wildly at the suggestion. Fire. Of course it would come down to fire. Elemental, destructive, irreversible. But could you really bring yourself to do it? Could you watch as flames consume the very thing that's forced you to confront your deepest truths? Before you can dwell on it further, another realization dawns. One that sends ice coursing through your veins. If the doll represents a fragment of your soul, then destroying it might mean losing a piece of yourself forever. What happens to me afterward? You ask hesitantly, afraid of the answer but needing to hear anyway. The doll tilts its head again, considering. "That depends," it says finally, "on whether you choose to rebuild or let the ashes bury you." The weight of the doll's word settles over you like a shroud, pressing down until it's hard to breathe. Rebuild or let the ashes bury you. The choice feels impossibly stark, each option laden with consequences you're not sure you're ready to face. Yet deep down, you know there's no turning back now. Not after everything it's shown you, everything it's forced you confront. "Fine," you say finally, your voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do it, but first I need answers." About him, the maker. The doll tilts its head slightly, as if nodding in approval. "Then seek them," it replies softly. "But be warned, the truth may cost more than you expect." You don't respond immediately, instead rising from the couch and pacing the room. Your mind races with questions, fragments of photographs and journal entries, swirling together into a chaotic mosaic you can't quite piece together. Who was he? What drove him to create such cursed objects? And why does his influence feel so personal? Grabbing the journal from the coffee table, you flip through its pages again, searching for anything that might point you in the right direction. Near the back, tucked between sketches of dolls and cryptic notes about binding rituals, you find a single name scrawled hastily in red ink. Ezekiel Voss. Ezekiel Voss. You mutter aloud, testing the syllables on your tongue. The name sounds vaguely familiar, though you can't place why. Flipping further, you discover a brief entry dedicated entirely to him. Voss believed souls could be shaped like clay, molded by willpower alone. His creations were vessels, not just for emotion, but for control. Those who claimed them became extensions of his desires, bound by threads invisible yet unbreakable. Your stomach churns uneasily at the description. Extensions of his desires. Is that what you become? A puppet dancing on strings pulled by someone long dead? Another passage catches your eye, circled repeatedly in bold strokes. He vanished without a trace in 1923, leaving behind only rumors and whispers. Some say he died. Others claim he ascended beyond mortality, becoming one with the forces he sought to master. Historians still argue whether figures like Ezekiel Voss were madmen or visionaries. Individuals who pushed boundaries too far, blurring the line between genius and insanity. Judging by the doll sitting before you now, radiating heat from its glowing symbol, you suspect he leaned heavily toward the latter. Thunder rumbles faintly outside, a distant echo of the storm that passed hours ago. Lightning flashes briefly, illuminating the room in stark relief, and revealing something new atop the journal's final page. An address. 47 Blackthorn Lane. Your breath catches in your throat. It's local, an old, forgotten part of town you've driven past countless times but never ventured into. Could this be where he worked? Where he lived? Where he disappeared? You'll find traces of him there. The doll says suddenly, startling you out of your thoughts. Its voice is softer now, almost wistful. Pieces of it will embed in the walls, the floors, the very air you breathe. Be careful. They'll try to bind you too. Bind me how? You ask sharply, clutching the journal tightly. By feeding off your fears, it replies simply. By reminding you of the chains you're trying so hard to break. A chill runs down your spine at the thought. Confronting the Maker means confronting yourself. Your doubts, your insecurities, the parts of you still clinging desperately to the life he helped shape. Setting the journal aside, you grab your coat and pull it on, fingers trembling slightly as you zip it up. The night air feels colder than usual, biting at your cheeks as you step outside. Streetlights cast long shadows across wet pavement, their glow reflecting off puddles left behind by the storm. Each step toward Blackthorn Lane feels heavier than the last, as though the ground itself is resisting your progress. When you arrive, the house looms before you like something out of a nightmare. Its windows are dark and empty, glass panes cracked or missing entirely. Paint peels away from warped wooden siding, exposing rotting beams beneath. A wrought iron fence around the property, rusted hinges groaning faintly in the breeze. Pushing open the creaky gate, you approach the front door cautiously, heart pounding wildly in your chest. The handle turns easily despite years of neglect, swinging inward to reveal a space frozen in time. Dust coats every surface, thick enough to leave trails when disturbed. Faint moonlight filters through broken windows, casting jagged patterns across the floorboards. And then you see it, a workbench cluttered with tools, scraps of fabric, and half-finished dolls scattered carelessly around the room. At its center sits a leather-bound ledger identical to one you brought home, its cover embossed with the same spiderweb-like symbol etched into the doll's chest. Opening it carefully, you skim the pages filled with cramped handwriting and crude sketches. Most entries detail experiments conducted on unsuspecting subjects. Children, mostly, testing the limits of control through manipulation of emotion and memory. One phrase stands out, repeated obsessively throughout the text. To command is to own. To own is to immortalize. Your hands tremble as you turn the page, revealing a photograph tucked inside. It's the same image you found earlier. The woman beside the workbench, the man with piercing eyes, the child clutching her ragged doll. Only now, you recognize the resemblance. The child is you. The photograph trembles in your hands, the edges worn and brittle from years of being handled. The child staring back at you is unmistakably familiar. Smaller, younger, but undeniably you, clutching that ragged doll to her chest. She looks both defiant and terrified, as though she knows something no one else does. Something dangerous. Your breath catches painfully in your throat, tears blurring your vision as reality shifts beneath your feet. All this time, the memories, the emotions, the sense of being controlled, it wasn't just metaphorical. It was literal. You weren't imagining the connection between yourself and the doll because you were its original owner, its first vessel. No, you whisper hoarsely, shaking your head furiously. That's not possible. But deep down, you know it is. The pieces fit too perfectly to dismiss. The way the doll mimicked your suppressed emotions, the whispers echoing truths you've tried so hard to bury, the eerie familiarity of its cracked porcelain face. It wasn't just reflecting you. It was you, a fragment of your soul bound by Ezekiel Voss's will and trapped within his creation. Thunder rumbles faintly outside, a distant reminder that storms leave scars long after they pass. Inside, the air feels thick with history, heavy with the weight of decades-old secrets clinging to every surface. Dust motes swirl lazily in the dim light filtering through broken windows, their movements almost hypnotic. You glance around the room, searching for anything else that might explain what happened here, or why Voss chose you. Another flash of lightning reveals a locked cabinet tucked into the corner near the workbench. Kneeling down, you examine it closely, noting the intricate carvings etched into its wooden surface, symbols resembling the one glowing faintly on the doll's chest. This has to mean something. You mutter under your breath, running your fingers over the grooves. Historians still argue whether such markings hold inherent power or merely serve as psychological triggers designed to influence perception. Either way, they feel significant now. Keys unlocking whatever lies hidden inside. Grabbing a rusted screwdriver from the cluttered bench, you pry open the cabinet doors, wincing at the loud creak they make as they swing outward. Inside, stacks of yellowed papers and brittle photographs spill out onto the floor, accompanied by an old leather satchel coated in dust. Opening it cautiously, you find a collection of personal belongings, letters, trinkets, and, most notably, a small mirror framed in tarnished silver. Picking up the mirror, you catch sight of your reflection and freeze. For a moment, the image staring back is entirely yours. Superimposed over your features is the ghostly outline of another face. Pale, gaunt, with hollow eyes that seem to bore into your soul. Voss! You breathe, send the mirror down quickly before the illusion can take root fully. Flipping through the letters next, you discover fragment of correspondence between Voss and someone referred to only as the benefactor. Their exchanges are cryptic, filled with references to experiments conducted on subjects and progress made toward achieving immortality through control. One passage stands out, circled repeatedly in red ink. To bind a soul is a tether to eternity, but only if the vessel remains intact. Should it break, the tether snaps, releasing chaos. Chaos. The word sends a shiver racing up your spine. Breaking the doll means more than destroying a cursed object. It means severing the tether binding your soul to Voss's will, and unleashing whatever consequences come with it. Another letter reveals something even more unsettling. A list of names, each accompanied by brief notes detailing their roles in Voss's experiments. Scanning the list, you spot your own name near the bottom, written in faded ink. Subject 12, resilient but fractured. Ideal candidate for final phase. Resilient but fractured. The description stings, cutting deeper than any physical wound ever could. He saw you as nothing more than raw material, a tool to be shaped and molded according to his desires. Anger bubbles up inside you, hot and searing, threatening to consume everything in its path. Clenching your fists tightly, you rise to your feet and pace the room, trying to steady your breathing. Every step kicks up clouds of dust, stirring memories buried long ago. And then you see it, a narrow staircase leading downward, partially concealed behind a rotting curtain. Descending cautiously, you find yourself in a cramped basement lit only by the faint glow of your phone's flashlight. Shelves line the walls, cluttered with jars containing strange substances. Powders, liquids, shards of glass etched with symbols similar to those on the cabinet. At the center of the room sits an altar-like table draped in black cloth, atop which rests a single item, a doll identical to the one waiting for you at home. This one, however, is shattered. Its porcelain face lies cracked into pieces, its limbs twisted unnaturally as though it had been tortured before finally breaking apart. Etched into its chest is the same symbol, but instead of glowing faintly, it appears scorched, charred beyond recognition. Kneeling beside it, you notice something clutched in its tiny hand. A shard of mirrored glass reflecting your distorted image back at you. You're running out of time, a voice whispers suddenly, startling you. It's soft yet insistent, layered with echoes that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. Spinning around, you scan the shadows for its source, but there's no one there. Just you, the broken doll, and the lingering presence of Ezekiel Voss's dark legacy. The whisper lingers in the air, reverberating softly as though the walls themselves are speaking. You clutch the shard of mirrored glass tightly, its edges biting into your palm, grounding you against a rising tide of panic. The voice didn't belong to the doll. It was too fragmented, too layered with echoes, but it carried a familiarity that chills you to the bone. Running out of time for what? You demand aloud, your voice trembling despite your attempt to sound defiant. No answer comes. Only the faint drip of water leaking to the ceiling above, each drop splashing onto the concrete floor with an unnerving finality. Lightning flashes briefly outside, casting jagged shadows across the basement and illuminating the broken doll on the altar. Its shattered face reflects none of the chaos surrounding it. Instead, it seems eerily serene, almost resigned. Historians still argue whether objects imbued with human will retain fragments of their creator's consciousness, or if they simply amplify the emotion projected onto them by those who interact with them. Sitting here now, staring at the ruined doll, you can't help but wonder which theory applies. Is this thing truly dead? Or does some remnant of Voss's influence linger within it, watching, waiting? Your gaze shifts back to the shard of glass clutched in your hand. Reflected in its fractured surface is not just your own distorted image, but glimpses of other faces. Faint, fleeting, yet undeniably present. Some appear familiar, while others are entirely foreign, their expressions ranging from sorrowful to accusatory. Each one feels like a piece of yourself, or perhaps pieces of others whose souls were bound and broken by Voss's experiments. "What do you want from me?" you whisper hoarsely, addressing no one in particular. The silence stretches on, oppressive and suffocating, until another realization dawns. One so obvious it makes your stomach twist painfully. Time isn't running out because of something external. It's running out because you are hesitating. Every moment spent searching for answers, confronting memories, and piecing together fragments of the past brings you closer to the inevitable choice. Destroy the doll or remain tethered to its curse forever. But destruction comes at a price, a sacrifice far greater than fire alone. Rising unsteadily to your feet, you take one last look at the broken doll before turning toward the staircase. The journey back upstairs feels heavier than the descent, as though the weight of everything you've uncovered has settled onto your shoulders. When you emerge into the main room, the ledger lies open where you left it, its pages fluttering slightly in the breeze, drifting through broken windows. Flipping through it again, you find another passage circled repeatedly in bold strokes. To sever the tethers to reclaim the soul, but only if the vessel offers itself willingly. Willingly. The word hits like a punch to the gut, forcing you to confront an uncomfortable truth. Destroying the doll won't be enough. It must choose to let go, and in doing so, force you to do the same. Thunder rumbles faintly outside, shaking loose bits of plaster from the ceiling. As you step out into the cold night air, the house behind you groans audibly, settling further into decay. The streets are eerily quiet, puddles reflecting streaks of moonlight as you make your way home, each step heavier than the last. When you finally arrive, the apartment feels different, smaller, suffocating. The doll sits motionless on the coffee table, its glowing symbol pulsing faintly in rhythm with your racing heartbeat, setting the shard of glass beside it. You kneel down and lean forward, locking eyes with its unblinking gaze. "It's time," you say softly, your voice wavering but resolute. The doll tilts its head slightly, as if nodding in agreement. "Are you ready?" it asks, its tone almost gentle. "No," you admit quietly, tears pricking at the corners of your eyes. "But I don't think I'll ever be." "That's okay," it replies, its painted lips curving upward in a faint, bittersweet smile. Freedom rarely feels easy. Reaching out, you grasp the doll firmly, feeling its cold porcelain surface beneath your fingertips. For a moment, it feels alive, warm, even, as though it's offering itself to you willingly. Closing your eyes, you take a deep breath and focus on the connection between you. The chains binding your soul to its cursed form, the threads pulling taut under, decades-old control. And then you speak, not to the doll, but to yourself. "I release you." The words echo softly in the stillness, carrying a weight far greater than their simplicity suggests. The doll symbol glows brighter, radiating heat that warms the air around it. Its tiny hands twitch slightly, fingers curling inward as though releasing something intangible yet profound. "You'll need fire," It says finally, its voice barely audible over the sudden rush of emotion flooding your chest. Nodding, you rise to your feet and retrieve a lighter from the kitchen drawer. Returning to the coffee table, you hesitate briefly, staring at the doll one last time. Its cracked face reflects none of the turmoil brewing inside you. Instead, it seems peaceful, almost content. "I'm sorry," you whisper hoarsely, tears streaming down your cheeks. "It's not goodbye," it replies softly. "It's freedom." With that, you ignite the flame and hold it close to the doll's dress. Fire catches quickly, consuming fabric and porcelain alike in a blaze of orange and red. Heat radiates outward, warming your skin even as it burns away the last remnants of Ezekiel Voss's will, and yours along with it. As the flames die down, leaving behind nothing but ash, a strange calm washes over you. The chains are gone, severed completely, but the scars remain, a reminder of everything you endured to reclaim yourself. The room feels emptier now, the absence of the doll's presence leaving behind a hollow silence that stretches endlessly. You sit there on the floor, knees pulled tightly to your chest, staring at the pile of ash where it once stood. Your hands tremble slightly. Fingers smudge with soot from the fire, but beneath the trembling lies something unexpected, clarity. For years, decades, you've carried the weight of someone else's will, allowing to shape your decisions, suppress your emotions, and define your identity. Now, stripped bare those invisible chains, you feel lighter. Not whole, not yet, but free in ways you never imagined possible. Thunder rumbles faintly outside, a distant echo of the storm that brought all this into motion. Lightning flashes briefly, illuminating the apartment in stark relief and casting jagged shadows across the walls. But unlike before, the storm doesn't feel menacing anymore. Instead, it seems almost cleansing, washing away the remnants of what came before. Historians still argue whether freedom requires destruction or merely transformation, a shedding of old layers to make way for new growth. Sitting here now, surrounded by ashes and memories, you suspect it's both. The doll was more than an object. It was a fragment of yourself bound by another's desires. Destroying it didn't just sever ties to Ezekiel Voss. It forced you to confront who you are without those constraints. But the journey isn't over yet. As the adrenaline fades and exhaustion sets in, you notice something strange about the ash pile. Amidst the charred remains lies a single shard of porcelain, unburned and gleaming faintly under the dim light. Reaching out hesitantly, you pick it up, turning it over in your fingers. Its surface is smooth, almost warm to the touch, etched with the faintest outline of the same spiderweb-like symbol that haunted you throughout this ordeal. "What is this?" you mutter aloud, examining it closely. A whisper fills the air, not loud enough to startle you, but distinct enough to send shivers racing up your spine. It's not done yet. Your breath catches painfully in your throat as the voice sinks in, layered echoes reverberating softly around the room. It's familiar yet foreign, carrying undertones of both compassion and inevitability. Rising slowly to your feet, you glance around, searching for its source. But there's no one there. Just you, the shard, and a lingering sense that something greater is at play. Who's speaking? You ask sharply, clutching the shard tightly. No answer comes immediately, only the faint hum of electricity buzzing through the walls. Then, ever so softly, the voice responds. The tether may be broken, but the curse remains. The words hit like a sledgehammer, knocking the breath from your lungs. Curse? What curse? Wasn't destroying the doll supposed to end everything? Another flash of lightning reveals the shard glowing faintly now, pulsing in rhythm with the storm outside. As you stare at it, fragments of memory begin to resurface. Things you thought were buried forever. Foster homes. Rules imposed without explanation. Choices made for you rather than by you. Each recollection stings worse than the last, reopening wounds you hope had healed, or at least scarred over. You don't understand. The voice continues, softer this time, almost sympathetic. The doll wasn't the source of the curse. It was the anchor. Destroying it freed your soul, but the consequences of Voss's experiments run deeper than any single object. Consequences. The word heavy in the air, laden with implication. Pieces click together in your mind. forming a picture far darker than anything you'd anticipated. If the doll was merely an anchor, then the curse itself must stem from something else, from him. Voss! You breathe hoarsely, shaking your head furiously. It's always been him, hasn't it? Yes. The voice replies simply, its tone tinged with regret. And until you confront his will completely, the curse will continue to haunt you. Outside, the storm intensifies, rain pounding against the windows with relentless fury. Thunder crashes violently overhead, rattling the entire apartment and momentarily plunging the room into darkness. When the lights flicker back on, the shard glows brighter, radiating heat that warms the air around it. What do I have to do? You ask finally, your voice wavering between anger and desperation. Face him, the voice says firmly. Not just his legacy, but him. He's closer than you think. Before you can respond, the shard pulses sharply, sending a jolt of energy coursing through your hand and up your arm. Images flood your mind unbidden. The workbench cluttered with tools, the altar draped in black cloth, the mirror reflecting ghostly faces superimposed over your own. And then, clearer than anything else, a single location, the house on Blackthorn Lane. He's there. You whisper hoarsely, clutching the shard tightly. Yes, the voice confirms softly. But be warned, he won't let go easily. Lightning strikes nearby, momentarily plunging the room into darkness once more. When the glow fades, the shard has grown warmer, its edges glowing faintly red as though alive with purpose. You know what you have to do. Grabbing your coat, you step outside into the storm, heart pounding wildly in your chest. Streets glisten wetly under harsh streetlights, puddles reflecting streaks of orange and pink as dawn begins to break. Each step toward Blackthorn Lane feels heavier than the last, weighed down not just by fear, but by resolve. Whatever waits for you inside that house, whatever remnant of Ezekiel Voss lingers within its walls, you'll face it head-on, because running isn't an option anymore. The storm rages on as you approach the house on Blackthorn Lane, its silhouette looming larger with each step you take. Rain lashes against your face, mingling with the cold sweat prickling your skin, while thunder growls low and menacing in the distance. Every instinct screams at you to turn back, to run far away from this place and never look back, but something deeper, more primal, keeps you moving forward. This isn't just about breaking free anymore. It's about confronting the source of everything that's haunted you. The man who shaped not only the doll, but also parts of you. Ezekiel Voss. Pushing open the creaky gate, you trudge through mud-soaked grass toward the front door, clutching the shard tightly in your hand. Its faint glow pulses rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, guiding you inward. The handle turns easily despite years of neglect, swinging inward to reveal the same decaying interior you explored earlier. But now, the air feels heavier, charged with energy that makes your hair stand on end. Historians still argue whether places can absorb residual emotions over time, becoming vessels for trauma and memory alike. If true, then this house is saturated with both. Every crack in the walls, every splintered floorboard seems to radiate pain and control. Stepping cautiously inside, you notice subtle changes. Shadows stretch longer than before, twisting grotesquely across the walls. Faint whispers drift through the air, layered echoes overlapping one another in a cacophony of voices. Some sound pleading, others accusatory, but all carry an undercurrent of despair. You shouldn't be here. A voice hisses suddenly, startling you. It's soft yet sharp, cutting through the chaos like a knife. Spinning around, you scan the room for its source. But there's no one there. Just you, the workbench cluttered with tools, and the lingering presence of something far darker. Voss? You call out hesitantly, your voice trembling despite your attempt to sound resolute. No answer comes immediately, only the faint drip of water leaking through the ceiling above. Then, ever so softly, the voice responds, not directly to you, but seemingly from everywhere and nowhere all at once. You think destroying the doll was enough? You think severing the tether freed you completely? Your stomach twists painfully at the accusation, guilt bubbling up alongside fear. I did what I had to do, you reply sharply, clutching the shard tighter. And yet here you are. The voice counters, its tone almost amused. Still bound by my will. Still carrying pieces of me within you. The words hit like a punch to the gut, forcing memories you thought were buried to claw their way back into consciousness. Rules imposed without explanation. Choices made for you rather than by you. Each recollection stings worse than the last, reopening wounds you hoped had healed, or at least scarred over. Thunder crashes violently outside, shaking the entire house and momentarily plunging the room into darkness. When the lights flicker back on, the shard glows brighter, casting faint shadows across the workbench. Etched into its surface is the same spiderweb-like symbol that haunted you throughout this ordeal, but now it appears fractured, cracked beyond recognition. "What do you want from me?" you demand aloud, tears pricking at the corners of your eyes. "To see if you're strong enough to break free," the voice replies simply, tinged with something resembling admiration. "To see if you can reclaim yourself completely, or if you'll let me define you forever." Another flash of lightning reveals a narrow staircase leading downward, partially concealed behind a rotting curtain. Descending cautiously, you find yourself in the cramped basement once more, lit only by the faint glow of the shard pulsing faintly in your hand. Shelves line the walls, cluttered with jars containing strange substances. Powders, liquids, shard of glass etched with symbols similar to those on the cabinet. At the center of the room sits the altar-like table draped in black cloth, atop which rests a single item, a mirror identical to the one you found earlier. Setting the shard down beside it, you catch sight of your reflection and freeze. For a moment, the image staring back is entirely yours. Superimposed over your features is the ghostly outline of another face, pale, gaunt, with hollow eyes that seem to bore into your soul. Voss. You breathe hoarsely, stepping closer to the mirror. Yes. The voice confirms softly, emanating directly from glass itself. And no, before you can react, the mirror shatters explosively, sending shards flying in every direction. One piece lodges itself deep into your palm, drawing blood that drips steadily onto the concrete floor below. Pain courses through your arm, sharp and searing, but beneath it lies something unexpected. Clarity. You wanted freedom. The voice says finally, softer now, almost kind. But freedom requires sacrifice, not just of objects or anchors, but of self. Let go of what he made you. Reclaim who you are. Closing your eyes, you focus on the connection between you. The chains binding your soul to his will, the threads pulling taut under decades-old control. And then you speak, not to him, but to yourself. I release you. The words echo softly in the stillness, carrying a weight far greater than their simplicity suggests. The shard embedded in your palm glows brighter, radiating heat that warms the air around it. Blood drips steadily onto the floor, pooling into the faint outline of the same spiderweb-like symbol etched into the doll's chest. As the glow fades, leaving behind nothing but silence, a strange calm washes over you. The chains are gone, severed completely. But the scars remain, a reminder of everything you endured to reclaim yourself. The silence in the basement is profound, almost sacred, as though the very air holds its breath. You stand there motionless, clutching your bleeding palm, the faint glow from the shard now extinguished, but its warmth lingering. A reminder of what just transpired. For a moment, you feel untethered, adrift in a vast expanse where nothing pulls at you anymore. No chains, no strings, no unseen hands guiding your every move. Just you. But freedom isn't emptiness. It's space to rebuild. And as the realization sinks in, so does the weight of everything you've lost and everything you've gained. Historians still argue whether breaking free of external control means reclaiming one's true self, or simply creating a new identity unburdened by past constraints. Sitting here now, surrounded by shattered glass and shadows, you suspect it's both. The person you were before Ezekiel Voss, before the doll, before the curse, is gone forever. But maybe that's okay. Maybe who you become next doesn't have to be defined by anyone else's will. Not even your own fear. Thunder rumbles faintly outside, softer now, less menacing. Lightning flashes briefly, casting jagged patterns across the walls and illuminating the altar where the mirror once stood. Now, Only shards remain, scattered like fragments of memory, reflecting pieces of yourself you thought were irretrievable. Kneeling down, you pick up one of the larger shards, holding it close enough to examine your reflection. Your face looks different somehow, not physically, but emotionally. There's strength in your eyes now, resilience carved into lines once filled with doubt and despair. You did it! A voice whispers softly, almost imperceptibly. It's not Voss this time. It's quieter, gentler, layered with echoes of the doll's final words. You face him. You face yourself. Tears prick at the corners of your eyes, blurring your vision as emotions surge uncontrollably. Relief, grief, triumph, all tangled together in a knot too tight to unravel fully. Yet amidst the chaos, there's peace, a fragile, hard-won peace that feels entirely your own. Rising slowly to your feet, you glance around the room one last time. The shelves lined with jars, the workbench cluttered with tools, the altar draped in black cloth. They're relics now, remnants of a life you've chosen to leave behind. Whatever power they held over you had been broken, reduced to dust and ash. Climbing the stairs back into the main house, you notice how much lighter the air feels, how much brighter the dim light filtering through broken windows appears. Outside, dawn breaks fully, streaks of orange and pink painting the sky as rain begins to taper off. The storm is past, not just a literal one battering the world beyond these walls, but the metaphorical tempest raging within you for years. Stepping out onto the porch, you take a deep breath, savoring the crisp morning air tinged with the scent of wet earth and fresh beginnings. Streets glisten under weak sunlight, puddles reflecting streaks of color as birds chirp hesitantly in nearby trees. Each sound feels sharper, more vivid, as though the world itself is waking up alongside you. And then you see it. A single crow perched on the wrought iron fence surrounding the property, its glossy feathers glinting faintly in the growing light. It tilts its head slightly, studying you with an intensity that sends shivers racing up your spine. "Is that you?" you ask softly, half expecting no answer. The crow caws once sharply, before spreading its wings and taking flight. Disappearing into the horizon, a small smile tugs at the corners of your lips despite yourself. Maybe some parts of us linger, fragments of his will embedded in the fabric of existence, but they no longer control you. They're echoes now, whispers fading with time. Walking away from the house, you don't look back. Let it crumble into ruin. Let nature reclaim its bones. What matters is what lies ahead, the unknown path stretching out before you, waiting to be shaped by choices truly your own. As you reach the end of Blackthorn Lane, the sun breaks fully over the horizon, bathing the world in golden light. Shadows stretch long across the pavement, mingling with reflections of clouds drifting lazily across the sky. Each step feels lighter than the last, as though the ground itself is lifting you forward rather than holding you down. Freedom isn't easy, it never was, but it's yours now. Yours to carry, yours to shape, yours to protect. The story fades gently here, softening like twilight, giving way to night. Whispers dissolve into quiet hums. Storms settle into stillness, and hearts find their rhythm again after chaos subsides. Whatever scars remain are reminders, not of pain, but of survival, of resilience, of becoming whole again after being broken apart. If you stayed with me this far, thank you for listening, for feeling, for daring to face the dark alongside me. Stories like these aren't just meant to frighten. They're meant to heal, to remind us that even in our darkest moments, we hold the power to rewrite our endings. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, let the echoes fade. Let the whispers soften until all that remains is calm. Breathe deeply. Dream gently. And remember, whatever chains bind you, they can always be broken.